I can't really explain it, but here it is, right? So there is this wild, it's this wild freedom that seems to be not moving, because it's freedom. It seems to come and go, but it's not coming and going. So there is this stillness, and then there's this movement. So stillness and movement appearing in and out, me, no me, contraction, openness, but it's not solid, because it's also moving. So there's this, it's so hard to explain, because the way that a perceiver thinks that there's a subject and object, there is a knowing. But if all of the knowing drops, right? All of the learning drops, then it's kind of like seeing this through such innocence that you don't know what it is. But the seeming contradiction is that there is an I that wants to know what this wonder is, right? What's this movement? And yet it's not moving, and it cannot be comprehended by the character. The individual only wants to understand it, but it's not about understanding it. It's wild. It's unimaginable. It's unfathomable. It's just this. And in this kind of like thing, you know what people can call it, some people in the apparent, more kind of like, Advaita, non-duality, will call it like pure consciousness, right? Which is just another label. And then, so when people think that it's pure consciousness, then they try to eliminate the thought in some of the practices and everything, right? Because they just want to experience this stillness. But the very wanting to experience the stillness is another movement, isn't it? Or trying to be still is just another movement. So it has nothing to do with the movement, but it's also the movement. It doesn't make sense. It's kind of like, which one is it? What is it? How can this be? So the very one that's questioning it has nothing to do with what is, right? But it's also appearing as what is. So it's so confusing that the apparent seeker wants to figure it out, wants to know what cannot be known. It's almost like this impersonal embrace that nothing will be able to be figured out. It's a complete surrender that there's no one that can figure it out. But there's this illusion, there's this persistent nagging feeling that I will get it, or the me will not get it, and it just keeps on going back and forth, right? But it has nothing to do with the mental activity. Because without the mental activity, it's just sensations, feelings, appearances. And then we're quick to label it as it or not it. There's really no it, there's really no not it. They're just words, right? They're just trying to comprehend something that is always it. So yeah, it even has nothing to do with thoughts. Has nothing to do with even energy, because that's just thought. Nothing to do with anything that you can think of. And that's the clarity without words. It's easy to go into a rabbit hole of ideas. It's easy to go into a rabbit hole of belief systems. And then we seem to position ourselves in our belief on what others seems to say. So don't believe in what I say. Don't believe in anyone that has to say about anything about this. And that's the conundrum, right? Because who's telling the truth? No one is. The truth cannot be told. And it's hard to admit that sometimes. Because the very wanting to listen to this, you want someone that knows this. But when someone proclaims that they know this, then it just becomes someone's idea about this. And that's the wow, right? That's kind of like, no way. It can't be figured out.
And well, I think seeking, or the conscious seeking, whatever, it's a story. Conscious seeking kind of started when I was a teenager, when I came in contact with, well, I think people would call it drugs. I don't like that word too much. Substances, which created some kind of states of happiness and joy, and I was surprised that I could feel so joyful, as if I haven't known this before in my life, which was quite weird in a way. So I was fascinated with this for a few years, and after a few years, this ended kind of. It became kind of boring and dull, as if I had been high enough time, so to speak. So I came out of this and stumbled into spirituality because, of course, I was still fascinated with feeling good, or with the idea of having good experiences or joyful experiences. So I've been to spirituality for a while, with a lot of healing stuff, self-inquiry, accepting stuff, letting go, whatever. All of those ideas and concepts I tried to realize for myself, and I tried to do, and I tried to go on further on my path. So there were those little successes and little failures and highs and lows and stuff like that. But after a few years, the same thing happened then with the substances before. It kind of became dull, and what I was actually looking for, a deeper kind of fulfillment, just never happened. I think well, I see it like that in a way. Well, let's put it like this. There seems to be, for most people, and there has been for me as well, this impression that I am someone, this energy that calls itself me, and a separate energy. That's how it feels. Or it's not a thought, it's kind of an experience. I exist. And how I would describe it, liberation is just the melting away or the death of that illusion. It's not really a realization, and it's not really that I gained something from it or I became something. So that's why I would just call it a melting away, a fizzling out, a dying off. Exactly, it's two things. On the one hand, it's not longer there, and especially the consequences of that energy are not longer there.
Yes.
On the other hand, actually just turned out that it was never really there in the first place.
There is nothing to achieve or to lose, because what is naturally coherent and perfect. Everything is exactly what it is.
Absolutely. And that's the natural reality. Andreas is Andreas, and the table behind me is the table behind me, and you are what you are. And it's very natural. There's nothing to overcome, there's nothing to lose or to go deeper or transcend in all those things. It's just not there.
Moving on.
Yeah. Well, of course, I wouldn't say that everything is an illusion. I would say the only illusion is that everything is an experience for someone. So I'm here and I'm experiencing something that's real. That's the illusion. And everything else just is what seems to be happening. But there's nothing that's real. And I think that's the natural reality. What happens being real and unreal. Us sitting here together and having this conversation being real and unreal. That's it. I is an illusion, so there is no one. That's why nothing can be achieved, and that's why nothing has been lost. It's this impression, I am, and I'm unfulfilled, which doesn't have any substance. That's the dream, that's the illusion. And it doesn't have to be replaced by a me that sees or becomes enlightened. That's a fight that can't be won. It'll never be won. There'll never be someone who got it.
Well, it's not revealed It's all there is. All there is already being. You're looking at it, you're breathing it, you're sitting on it. You can feel it, you can hear it. Infinite being is nothing being everything, is empty fullness. It is all embracing, and it is everything, and it's unconditional love, of course. But it is unconditional love, which we can't recognize in our dualistic experience of life. We don't really know what love is. Love in the dualistic world is a need. It's actually a need, love. It's a need to be loved and a need to love. But that unconditional love is beyond knowing. It can't be known, and it is everything. It is already everything that is and isn't happening. For me, the term I am is very much to do with the dualistic dream. And so I am is definitely for me a self-identification. But it also is equally with God, because God is also a dualistic dream, part of a dualistic dream. God is an apparent being which is separate to its followers, and so the I am very much applies to God as it does to individuals who believe they are people. So both of those things, as far as I'm concerned, are very clearly dualistic terms. I don't have any problem with seeing that they can be anything different than that. The term I am is all part of the dualistic dream. Even the term what is, I'm not very keen on it, in a way to round it off, but even then it's unsatisfactory. All there is what is and is not. Well, you could say unconditional love is all there is, and it is everything, rather like nothing is everything. That's the mystery that can't be understood by anyone, that all there is everything, which is nothing. So in the everything, there can be personal love, apparently personal love. But what I was trying to imply was that all the time there's a person and they're related to another person, there's some sort of bind, there's some sort of investment in that love. It's a need love, a need to be close to somebody or be loved by them. So in the dualistic sense of there being a relationship, then it's not what I would call love. It's more of a need for somebody to want you and you to want them. And there's some sort of agenda going on in that relationship. And so there isn't a relationship between unconditional love and personal love. Personal love is simply arising in unconditional love. Just as nothing is everything, then in everything there is dualism, there is seeking, there is a need for someone else to love you. All of those things are happening, or apparently happening, but they are all simply no thing in that form. So personal relationships, or personal love as you call it, is just everything in that form. But in that form, of course, it has an agenda going on, because of course the individual in that dualistic dream is needy, has a need for something to be confirmed. It's separate, so it's always demanding something of life and of another person. So that's how it emerges, and in that way it has, you could say, to be purist about it, that obviously that personal love is not unconditional love, because it is conditional. It's a conditional love. But in another way, you could also say that personal love is simply out of the whole. It is something that's happening out of the whole. At all, that comes out of it at all, because there's nothing happening. So you don't then, I'm getting the sense that what you might be saying is that if there is only unconditional love, then acts of goodness would come out of that. But it isn't like that. There isn't anything that comes out of unconditional love. Unconditional love is already everything.